Pain is a ruthless instructor, one that teaches without mercy, without care for comfort. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It simply arrives, shattering illusions and forcing you to face what's raw and real. Pain grips you, twists your heart, sears the mind, and leaves you transformed, branded with lessons that only agony could impart. When you're caught in its grip, there's no escape, no distraction strong enough to pull you away. It's the uninvited guest who stays until every part of you has been exposed, forced to grow, stripped down to the bone. Each scar it leaves is a mark of survival, a reminder of battles fought and endured. The agony etches its wisdom into your flesh, an experience words alone could never capture. Pain whispers lessons in the silent moments, in the heartbeats between rage and surrender, where clarity sharpens and the world takes on new meaning. Pain doesn't gently guide. It drags you through fire, reshaping you with every wound. And those who emerge from it, hardened and tempered, carry the strength to face whatever comes next. In history's silent corridors, those who wielded true power knew pain as their closest companion. Warriors, poets, philosophers, they all drank from the same bitter cup, finding clarity in suffering that no comfort could provide. Pain reveals the raw truths others are afraid to face, forcing you to look within, beyond the facade, and confront what's buried. It pushes past fear, past limits, until the soul stands bare, every weakness exposed. And once you've walked through pain's unforgiving halls, you understand there is no growth in comfort, no strength without struggle. The mind is a fragile thing until it meets pain. Pain carves through complacency, breaking the chains that bind you to a life of mediocrity. It takes every fear, every weakness, and lays them bare, daring you to face them or be destroyed. Those who resist, who refuse to let pain define them, find a power they never knew existed. The weak cower, but the strong rise, wielding their wounds like armor, unbreakable, unyielding. Pain's touch is a reminder that you are alive, a raw, brutal awakening that ignites a spark only hardship can kindle. Pain rewrites you, every lesson etched with precision, every scar a reminder of what you've endured. The mind doesn't forget, the body doesn't erase. Each wound remains, shaping who you are, what you can bear. Pain is a sculptor, relentless, carving away the unnecessary, leaving only what's essential. It reveals what lies beneath the surface, strips away the pretense, and exposes the core of who you truly are. Those who survive pain, who embrace its lessons, find themselves standing stronger, wiser, and prepared for whatever may come. In ancient texts, the wise spoke of pain as a path to enlightenment, a necessary step in the journey toward true understanding. Pain opens doors to knowledge that comfort keeps locked, a teacher that offers hard truths without softening the blow. It demands resilience, calling forth strength from depths you never knew you had. Those who walk away unscathed by pain have missed its greatest gift, a forced reckoning with the self, a push toward transformation. The price of pain is high, but its rewards are unparalleled. Pain doesn't offer choices, it imposes growth. It is the dark mentor, demanding and relentless, stripping away every weakness with brutal efficiency. Those who understand pain's role embrace its trials, knowing that real strength is forged through suffering, not ease. Pain teaches you to stand alone, to trust in your own resilience, to face life's darkest moments without flinching. It is the ally that others fear. the force that only the brave can wield, reshaping them into something formidable. Pain's lessons linger long after the wounds have healed, reminding you that survival is the first step toward mastery. In human biology, pain is a signal, a warning that something is wrong, that something needs to change. But beyond the physical, pain teaches the spirit, urging adaptation, resilience, a refusal to remain stagnant. Those who listen learn to adapt, to grow, to evolve beyond the limits imposed by comfort. Pain becomes the bridge from one life to another, from weakness to strength, from doubt to certainty. It's not a curse, but a call to action, a push into the unknown, a challenge issued by life itself to rise or fall. In dark psychology, pain reveals the truth about human nature, exposing the mind's fragility and the spirit's strength. It strips away delusions, forcing you to confront the parts of yourself that hide in the shadows. Pain is an ally to those willing to learn, a ruthless guide that shapes the mind into a weapon, honed and sharpened by hardship. Only those who accept its challenge gain the wisdom pain holds, the insight hidden within its depths. It teaches that suffering is not the enemy, but a necessary step towards self-mastery, a lesson that no other experience could teach. To conquer the monumental challenges, one must first tame the trivial distractions. It isn't the towering mountain that exhausts. It's the small, relentless irritations, the grain of sand in your shoe that grinds, gnaws, and wears down the spirit, drop by drop. These petty annoyances, seemingly insignificant, slowly drain your power, each one a tiny thief siphoning your strength. They're the silent assassins of ambition, the overlooked nuisances that erode resolve without you realizing. You give them room, let them consume your thoughts, and before long, they've turned your focus into fragments scattered by their petty persistence. Mastery over these irritants is not a small task. It's a discipline forged through awareness, a decision to silence the static noise that clutters the mind. Each annoyance, if left unchecked, becomes an obstacle to clarity, a weight pulling you down when you need to ascend. To indulge them, to let them rule, is to let yourself be ruled by weakness, by impulses that waste your finite energy. Be ruthless with these small thieves. Eliminate them with cold precision, leaving nothing but sharpened focus and pure willpower. Those who are led by the trivial never reach greatness. They fall prey to the small before they can even confront the monumental. Energy is finite, and to waste it on the inconsequential is to betray your own strength. Petty annoyances create cracks in the armor, each one an entry point for doubt, frustration, and exhaustion. They swarm the mind, filling it with trivial concerns until there's no room left for the thoughts that matter. You must discipline yourself to disregard these distractions, to refuse them a place in your mind. True power lies in restraint, in the ability to decide what deserves your attention and what does not. Allowing the insignificant to consume you is weakness disguised as awareness. Train your mind to filter, to discard, to focus only on the path ahead. The mountain waits, imposing and inevitable. But the real challenge? It's the sand, the persistent irritant that gnaws at you, forces you to stop, demands your attention. A warrior knows when to brush aside the small, to steel himself for the real battle that lies ahead. Do not let the small rob you of strength meant for the great. The trivial will always pull at you, nagging for your energy. But your path requires all of you: mind, spirit, willpower. Learn to step over these small shadows without flinching, without pause. The weak indulge them, the strong crush them underfoot. Letting petty annoyances consume you is surrendering to the small before the battle has even begun. Every moment spent indulging these trivialities is a moment stolen from progress, a step taken backward on the journey forward. To rise above requires cold detachment, an ability to look at these irritations and dismiss them without a second thought. The mountain won't stop to wait while you tend to the sand. It will demand everything of you. To give in to the small is to betray the path of strength, to choose weakness over will, surrender over mastery. It's a decision you make every moment, to rule over the petty or to let the petty rule over you. Each annoyance, each minor discomfort is a test of your control, your discipline. The grains of sand will always be there, scattered along the way, waiting to be noticed, to be given power. To acknowledge them is to let them grow, to feed them with energy they don't deserve. Ignore them, trample them, and let your focus sharpen, your will intensify. The strong don't stumble over grains of sand. They stride toward the summit, unwavering. The path to strength is littered with distractions, each one a potential pitfall. The wise know the cost of indulging these minor irritations. They sap willpower, divide focus, slow progress. Refuse them space in your mind, and you save your energy for the true battles. To master your focus is to master the path itself, to claim victory before you've even reached the mountain. Those who waste their strength on the small will be too weak for the great. They've already surrendered before the real challenge begins. Look to history, to those who conquered not just external mountains, but the internal irritations that tried to consume them. They did not allow themselves to be ruled by petty frustrations. They dismissed them, disallowed them room to grow. Every thought, every breath, every step was reserved for the purpose that lay ahead, for the goal that loomed. Their focus became an impenetrable shield, a force that carried them through every hardship, undistracted by the sand that tried to grind them down. This is the path of mastery, uncompromising, undeterred. The ultimate betrayal of self is to let the small things consume you, while the mountain looms ahead, demanding all that you are. Each irritation you allow is a weight on your back, a burden you've chosen to carry. Pain has a way of tricking you, convincing you that it's unique, that no one else has suffered in the way that you have. It whispers lies, isolates you, makes you feel that you're a solitary figure adrift in your own sorrow. But then, there are the books, the words scrawled by others who've walked through fire, who have tasted bitterness, just as raw, just as deep. Pain, once thought to be yours alone, suddenly has 1,000 faces, and each one mirrors your own. You realize you're bound to countless others, connected by an unbreakable thread of shared suffering, every scar an echo of a scar worn by someone else. Books reveal a harsh but liberating truth. Pain isn't unique to you, it's universal, a thread woven through the lives of all who have lived, all who have dared to feel. Each page, each story, pulls you into the minds of those who have suffered and survived, who have loved and lost, who have been broken and rebuilt. The torment you once believed to be singular, unprecedented, is instead something passed down through ages, through the ink-stained hands of those who refuse to be silenced by their wounds. The very things that torment you are what connect you to the world, binding you in a shared history of resilience, of unyielding spirit. In the words of the dead and the living, in pages marked by tears and triumphs, you find reflections of your own agony. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the anger, they're not yours alone. They belong to the ages, stitched into the fabric of human experience. Every line in every book becomes a whispered confession, a reminder that you're not the first, nor the last, to feel this depth of pain. Each story builds a bridge across time, linking your own struggle with those who have felt the weight of existence, those who have faced the darkness and come through to the other side. Books hold the confessions of those who found beauty in survival, strength in suffering. There's a strange comfort in seeing your suffering mirrored, in realizing that your torment isn't a curse unique to you, but a universal challenge shared by all who have dared to live deeply. The words of others become your comrades, the pages a battlefield where every blow has been felt before, every scar documented. Your suffering, once a solitary burden, becomes something shared, something that connects you with the entirety of humanity. Pain, then, is not a cage, but a doorway, a passage into the souls of others who have been stripped bare, who have bled on the pages for you to find strength in their shadows. Each book is a confession, a testament to the wounds that life inflicts on those who dare to feel. The agony, the rage, the silent screams, they're laid bare in every story, every poem, every line that refuses to be forgotten. You find kinship in the words of those who didn't hide from their suffering, but instead wrote it down, unafraid to expose their souls to the world. These words, these shared torments, teach you that pain is an initiation, a rite that binds all who have lived. It's a reminder that while the world is dark, you are never alone in the shadows, that countless others have walked this path and left their mark for you to follow. There's a strange kind of relief in knowing that your suffering is not a singular event, but a universal one, a part of the human condition that transcends time and place. It is a shared torment, a communal wound etched across centuries and continents. The poets, the warriors, the lost souls, they have all felt what you feel. They have left their ghosts in words, their pain immortalized on pages that dare not lie. Each line is a reminder that suffering is as old as the stars, that every tear you shed has been mirrored 1,000 times over. Pain becomes a bond, a dark thread that unites all who dare to face the depths of existence. In these pages, you find not just stories, but survivors, those who were marked by pain, yet rose from its ashes. Each book becomes a map, a guide through the labyrinth of suffering, showing you paths taken by those who refuse to be destroyed by their sorrow. Every sentence, every paragraph, is a piece of armor forged in the fires of shared experience, a weapon against the isolation that pain tries to impose. You learn from their journeys, their battles, their scars, the knowledge that others have endured, that others have overcome, arms you with a resilience that only shared pain can provide. Pain teaches, but books amplify the lesson, showing that each wound is a rite of passage, a test that binds you to the souls of countless others. You see the universality of suffering, the way it transcends boundaries, time, even death. The words of the broken become a beacon, a reminder that survival is possible, that resilience is not a gift, but a hard-won prize. Through books, pain Pain reveals its hidden side, a path to wisdom, to empathy, to an understanding that suffering is not an obstacle, but a bridge. Meaninglessness slips in quietly, masked by distraction and apathy. Yet its grip grows tighter, more insidious, feeding on every hour wasted in empty pursuits. It seeps into the mind, dulling the senses, sapping life of color and purpose until existence itself feels hollow. People drift, searching for something to fill the void, but finding only more emptiness, more desperation. In a world overwhelmed with options, with constant noise, meaninglessness becomes a silent epidemic. Every day, a million small distractions, each one tempting you away from purpose, from direction. But no escape, no vice, no thrill fills the growing chasm within. Society sells comfort, ease, a life free from struggle. But at what cost? In the absence of challenge, the absence of pain, the soul begins to decay, deprived of the very force that pushes it toward growth. Meaninglessness isn't merely the absence of purpose. It is the slow death of the human spirit, eroded by the relentless pursuit of comfort, by a culture that glorifies safety over strength. The need for struggle, for resilience, becomes clear only when the emptiness creeps in, when every fleeting pleasure fails to satisfy. And so, a desperate craving for meaning begins, born from a void that comfort alone cannot fill. In the quiet moments, the despair of meaninglessness becomes loud. It whispers in the silence, asking what this life is for, whether any of it matters. It gnaws at the edges of contentment, unraveling the illusion of peace crafted by superficial pleasures. Without purpose, every joy is shallow, every success hollow, and existence itself becomes a prison rather than a journey. We seek meaning in things, in validation, in the approval of others, yet none of it holds. Like sand slipping through fingers, meaninglessness erodes all illusions, leaving only the raw ache for something real, something that endures beyond the moment. The search for meaning is a war, one that grows harder as the world sinks deeper into distraction, into an endless loop of temporary fixes that leave the soul starving for substance. The mind, in its darkest corners, understands this, senses the hollowness that grows with each moment spent chasing illusions. Yet most turn away, afraid to confront the vast emptiness within, afraid of the silence that speaks only of unfulfilled potential, unasked questions. It's a battle many lose before they even begin, surrendering to numbness, to the lull of a life that demands nothing. There is no meaning without struggle, no fulfillment without facing pain. Yet people flee from hardship, flee from the very experiences that could give their lives depth. They fill their time with distractions, with noise, yet find themselves haunted by an inexplicable despair. Meaningless routines, empty relationships, hollow ambitions, all leading nowhere, all part of the desperate scramble to avoid the real work of life. Pain is feared, avoided, yet it is the only teacher capable of cutting through the fog, of forcing the soul to confront itself. Meaninglessness is the price paid for a life without pain. In a world afraid of discomfort, meaning slips through the cracks, disappearing in the pursuit of fleeting pleasure. To embrace meaninglessness is to turn away from the very essence of what makes one human, the need to fight, to endure, to overcome. The soul is a fierce thing, forged in hardship, tempered by challenges, strengthened by scars. Without this, it grows frail, hollow, lost in the aimless drift of a life with no anchor, no goal. The desperation grows, Yet few have the courage to face it, to find meaning through endurance, to seek purpose through pain. Each attempt to escape, to avoid the discomfort of existence, only feeds the void, making it deeper, darker. To face meaninglessness is to face oneself, to stare into the emptiness and demand more, to seek the struggle that brings purpose. Pain, in its ruthless way, is the guide, the force that brings clarity when everything else falls away. Those who turn to it, who embrace the lessons it brings, find themselves on the path to something real, something lasting. For meaning is not found in ease. It is earned through the battles one faces within. The relentless pursuit of meaninglessness consumes those who run from pain, those who choose comfort over purpose. A life without struggle is a life without depth, a shallow existence where joy is fleeting and fulfillment always out of reach. Each fleeting pleasure, each distraction, serves only to delay the inevitable confrontation with the void within. Pain, the ultimate teacher, stands waiting, offering lessons to those brave enough to confront what lies beneath the surface. Meaning is born from this courage, from the willingness to endure, to push beyond comfort, to seek something greater. To reject meaninglessness is to accept the call to face suffering, to rise above mediocrity, to pursue purpose with relentless determination. Experience, the relentless mentor. It pulls you through fire and leaves scars that carry lessons no words could ever teach. Each scar, each wound, becomes a map, an unspoken guide through the chaotic maze of life. Those who've suffered most are marked with the hardest earned wisdom, forged in agony, seared into memory. There's no textbook that can replace it. No philosophy gentle enough to soothe or harsh enough to impart the raw understanding born from real suffering. The worst moments become the clearest teachers, forcing lessons that linger, unforgettable, every truth branded into the psyche. Without aim, we drift, lost in the vastness of an indifferent world. But to navigate means to endure, to choose a direction even when the path is obscured, even when hope feels like a distant memory. Aimless lives circle, never touching on meaning, never grazing purpose. And while we exist in this world, we are bound to choose, bound to move forward. Life demands a target, a direction, even if that direction is shaped by pain, by loss, by the lessons no one asks for. It's a compass etched in blood, a reminder that survival isn't enough. We are meant to aim, to move, to struggle. Every trial endured, every hardship faced, sharpens that aim, transforming us from mere wanderers to seekers of something beyond survival. The bitter experiences shape the way, illuminating the next step, casting light where darkness once reigned. They cut through the fog of apathy, the haze of distraction, revealing a path that only those who've bled can see. Each lesson becomes a stepping stone, each failure a guidepost, pushing you further, urging you to reach towards something that demands resilience, demands transformation. Experience is the chisel that sculpts strength out of weakness, purpose out of despair. There's no comfort in this path, no gentleness in what life teaches through suffering. But those who embrace it, who accept the brutal reality of experience, find themselves wielding a strength others fear to imagine. This wisdom is forged, not given, earned through each setback, each loss. And while the pain burns, it also clarifies, forcing decisions, stripping away distractions, guiding you towards something real, something solid. Experience is the relentless force that carves out resilience, leaving no room for weakness, no place for hesitation. The strongest lives are built on the hardest lessons, the truest wisdom, birthed from pain. As we walk through life, aiming, falling, rising, we accumulate scars, each one a testament to a lesson learned. They are reminders that we were tested, that we survived what others could not. The aim sharpens, the path clears, but only for those who dare to keep walking, who refuse to be consumed by the wounds of their past. Pain marks the way forward, ensuring that each step is rooted in the reality of what has been faced, what has been conquered. Experience turns agony into purpose, loss into strength, transforming pain into something indestructible. This world is not kind to those who drift. It devours them, leaving behind nothing but remnants of lives unlived, potential squandered. But to those who aim, who refuse to be broken by the lessons forced upon them, it grants an understanding that cannot be taken. They walk with a different weight, a different purpose, every step driven by the brutal wisdom that suffering imparts. To learn from pain is to refuse defeat, to stand against the indifference of existence and claim purpose out of chaos. Experience does not yield easily, but its rewards are unparalleled, lasting. Each failure endured, each moment of suffering, becomes a part of the armor, forged through experience. It strengthens the resolve, prepares the spirit for the battles that lie ahead. Those who flee from hardship are left with hollow lives, with lessons unlearned, paths unexplored. But those who face it, who absorb each lesson, emerge unbreakable, their will hardened, their purpose unshakable. Experience is the only teacher that forces the lesson to stick, that leaves you marked, altered. Pain teaches this like no other force, embedding truths that remain long after the wounds have healed. To walk a path without pain, without hardship, is to walk a path without growth. Experience demands that you risk, that you face the unknown with a fire that refuses to be extinguished. Each choice, each aim, propels you forward, regardless of the obstacles. The darkest experiences, the hardest lessons, become the very foundation of strength, the guiding force that keeps the spirit alive. To learn from pain is to accept the cost of wisdom, to understand that each lesson is paid for in suffering, in the scars that mark the journey. Experience is the force that compels, that drives the unyielding forward, that demands more with each step. The worst of times, the most unforgiving trials, become the very fuel that propels the soul, the evidence that strength exists within the darkness. Living properly, that's a burden few can carry, a concept that sounds noble, but hides a terrifying truth. Living properly means facing oneself fully, without the comfort of lies, without the illusions we cling to. It's a life stripped of excuses, a raw existence where the weight of self-consciousness, of our own fragile mortality, is something we confront daily. The agony of knowing that each action, each thought, is a choice, a consequence, that every failing is our own. It's enough to drive most into the arms of denial. But what if we had the strength to bear it? To stand upright under the crushing awareness of our own imperfection? The frailty of human existence becomes apparent when one dares to look it squarely in the face. Most would rather retreat, find shelter in the certainty of dogma or in the comforting haze of apathy. Living with awareness means acknowledging our flaws, our inevitable decay, the inescapable end. It's a knowledge that few can stomach, for it reveals just how insignificant, how temporary we truly are. And in this vulnerability, resentment often breeds. A bitterness at the unfairness of life, a rage against the limits of mortality. It festers, grows, until all that remains is the desire to tear down what can never be changed. To avoid this descent, to live in a way that confronts, rather than cowers, takes a will of steel. It means accepting that we are weak, that we are flawed, that the world is filled with suffering, and that we contribute to it. Living properly would demand that we take ownership, not as victims of fate, but as beings with the power to choose. The ones who refuse this responsibility, who drown their awareness in distractions or rigid beliefs, they are the ones who risk slipping into resentment, then envy, and finally, the abyss of vengeance. The 20th century showed us just how far this path can go, how close we can come to creating hell on Earth. If one could truly live with this awareness, without succumbing to bitterness, the need for control, for totalitarian absolutes, would dissolve. It's easier to run to authoritarian certainty, to doctrines that paint the world in black and white, absolving oneself of responsibility. But to live properly, to stand in the ambiguity of life, in the painful knowledge of our own limitations, that takes a courage most lack. To choose this path is to reject the easy answers, to accept that ignorance and insufficiency are part of the human condition. It's a path few can walk, but it's the only way to avoid the descent into madness. Our frailty is undeniable, yet so many deny it, burying their heads in shallow pleasures or rigid ideologies. This denial breeds contempt for the self and for others, a bitterness that sours the soul. But to live properly would mean to carry this weight without complaint, to shoulder the burden of self-consciousness without blaming the world for our own limitations. It would mean understanding that our flaws don't justify resentment, that our weaknesses aren't excuses to lash out. Those who embrace this live, free from the chains of bitterness, for they've accepted the harsh truths without letting them poison their minds. To tolerate the knowledge of our own mortality without succumbing to despair or the need for vengeance is perhaps the highest form of strength. It's a rejection of victimhood, a refusal to let fragility dictate the terms of life. It's understanding that while we may be small, while we may suffer, we also have the capacity for immense resilience. Those who refuse this knowledge, who hide from it, become trapped in cycles of envy and anger, lashing out at the world, demanding that it shield them from their own insufficiency. But the strong stand alone, facing the darkness within, without asking the world to carry their weight. Totalitarian certainty is the refuge of the weak, those who cannot bear the ambiguity, the vastness of life without clear answers. It offers a sense of control, a way to quiet the gnawing doubts, to silence the voice that reminds us of our limits. But this control is a lie, a shallow imitation of strength that crumbles under scrutiny. To live properly is to reject this, to face life without a crutch, to bear the weight of existence on one's own shoulders. It's not an easy path, but it's the only way to live without succumbing to bitterness. If more could live properly, the need for vengeance, for destruction, would fade. A life lived in acceptance, in acknowledgement of one's own flaws, has no room for the poison of envy, the corrosive need to tear others down. Resentment arises when one refuses to take responsibility, when the bitterness of one's own weakness is projected onto the world. But those who live in truth, who accept the weight of their own consciousness, carry themselves without complaint, without blame. They walk free, bound only by the knowledge that strength lies in acceptance, not in vengeance. Rules. They aren't there to restrict us, but to anchor us, to keep the wildness within in check. In a world without boundaries, we'd be nothing more than beasts, creatures driven by impulse, slaves to whim. Standards, values, they're the spine of civilization, the unyielding structure that holds us together. Alone, we drift. Together, we build. Each rule is a link in the chain that binds us to purpose, giving weight to our actions, making sure that our existence has a shadow of meaning, a trace of worth. Without them, chaos reigns, and with chaos, we're lost. We are beasts of burden, carrying our weights through the harshness of life, each one a testament to our endurance. This load, this strain, it's not punishment, it's purpose. It's what drives us forward, what keeps us upright when the ground beneath threatens to swallow us whole. To live without weight, without burden, is to live without meaning, a hollow existence, drifting in the wind. The heavier the load, the sharper the purpose, the deeper the reason to rise each day. The burden is our reminder that we are alive, that we are still capable of withstanding whatever life throws in our path. A pack animal, alone, is vulnerable, easily preyed upon, but together, bound by common values, it becomes resilient, powerful. Human beings need the structure of society, the shared rules and standards that give direction, that create order from the inherent chaos of our nature. We're pack animals, creatures designed to rely on each other, to form bonds forged in shared suffering. We are meant to carry burdens, to support the weight of others as they support ours. This is how meaning is born, from unity, from sacrifice, from carrying the collective weight that gives life a purpose beyond survival. Without values, without rules, life is meaningless. It's an existence driven by desire, an endless chase for fleeting pleasures that leave nothing but emptiness in their wake. Standards hold us to something greater, a level that demands discipline, that pushes us beyond comfort. They create a path, a guide, leading us through life's uncertainties. A life without standards, without something to measure against, is a life without progress. Rules are the invisible lines that separate chaos from order, weakness from strength, and they are the only defense against the darkness within. Life demands that we bear a load, that we shoulder the weight of responsibility. This burden is not a curse. It is a gift, a purpose that drags us out of mediocrity. Those who refuse it drift, unbound, aimless, lost in a sea of nothingness. The weight we carry becomes our identity, our worth. Each struggle, each hardship, adds another layer to who we are, hardening us, shaping us into something unbreakable. Without this weight, without the struggle, we become shadows, barely existing, shells of what we could be. The load is what separates the strong from the weak. Standards, values, these are the things that bind us, that prevent us from becoming slaves to our base desires. They are the lines drawn in the sand, boundaries that force us to grow, to strive, to reach for something more. Without them, there's no direction, no goal, only an endless spiral of meaningless existence. Rules give life structure, a framework within which we can grow, can become more than we are. They demand sacrifice, but that sacrifice is what gives life meaning, what turns suffering into strength. To live without rules is to surrender to chaos, to become a prisoner to impulse. Each rule, Each value upheld adds weight to our lives, creating a purpose that transcends our fleeting desires. We bear this weight willingly, knowing that it is the only thing that keeps us grounded, that holds us to something real. A life without standards is a life without dignity, without direction. The burden we carry is our own creation, forged in the fires of our choices, our sacrifices. It's what keeps us human, what prevents us from becoming creatures of impulse. To bear this weight is to embrace our purpose, to accept the pain that shapes us. In isolation, we are nothing but hollow shells, beings drifting without purpose. But together, bound by shared values, we are unstoppable, capable of facing any storm. This shared burden, this collective weight, is what gives life meaning. Alone, we are fragile, but as part of something greater, we become resilient. To bear the weight of life alone is a punishment, but to share it with others, to carry it for something greater than oneself, that is purpose, that is strength. Together, we forge meaning from suffering, turn pain into progress. Standards demand more from us. They push us to become something greater, something stronger. They are the unyielding barriers that force us to grow, to endure. A life without values is a life without depth, without substance. Each rule broken, each value abandoned, strips away a part of who we are, leaves us weaker, more vulnerable. Aspiring upward shatters the fragile peace of complacency. The moment you reach beyond the limits others set, you become a living reminder of what they refuse to face. It's a silent accusation, a brutal mirror held up to their own stagnation. When you rise, when you claw your way out of the pit, you show that it's possible, that there's more than just survival, more than settling for mediocrity. And in that rise, you shake their world, forcing them to confront the ugly shadow of their own inertia. They hate it, despise it, because you expose the lie they've told themselves for so long, that staying still is somehow acceptable. Your ambition reveals the inadequacy of the present, not just for you, but for them. It makes clear the distance between where they are and where they could be, if only they had the will. Every step you take upward is a challenge to their comfort, to the smallness they've accepted. It's a sharp, unspoken critique that speaks louder than words, one that cuts to the core of their self-imposed limitations. As you climb, you become the person they've betrayed within themselves, the voice they've silenced with excuses, with cynicism. You become able to their cane, the light they have chosen to extinguish. There's a violence in ambition, a primal defiance that doesn't just lift you, it condemns those who refuse to rise. Every goal you set, every milestone reached, is a reminder that they too have the potential, but lack the courage. Your path upward leaves them behind, stuck in the mire of their own making. And so, resentment festers. They call you arrogant, ruthless, anything to justify their own stillness. But the anger, the bitterness, it's nothing but the cries of those too fearful to aspire, too afraid to confront the pain of their own inadequacy. You ascend, and in doing so, you lay their souls bare. To aspire is to become a target, to willingly make yourself a threat to the comfort of others. It isn't enough for them to fail alone. They need you to fall, to stay grounded, to validate their choice to remain stagnant. Your growth, your achievements, they gnaw at them, a constant reminder that they could have more but choose less. They cling to their cynicism, their immobility, trying to drag you down to their level. But in your ascent, you become untouchable, someone who refuses to be shackled by the insecurities of others. You play Abel to their Cain, embodying the purity they despise and secretly crave. Your upward motion disturbs something primal, something they've buried beneath layers of resignation. It's not merely that you're moving forward, it's that you're exposing the emptiness of standing still. They see in you what they've denied in themselves, the capacity to reach, to struggle, to suffer for something more. And that disturbs them to their core. They sense the unspoken condemnation, the silent accusation of their own cowardice. You are a reminder that they've settled, that they've betrayed the part of themselves that once dared to dream, to aspire, to believe. Your ambition becomes a crime in their eyes. The promise of the future, of something greater, is a threat to those who have given up. When you dare to look forward, you make them painfully aware of the chains they've wrapped around their own ambitions. You stand as proof that their cynicism is a choice, not a necessity. Every step you take upward reminds them of the heights they could reach. If only they had the courage to endure the struggle, the pain. You become their excuse, their scapegoat, someone to blame for the inadequacies they see in themselves. Your strength only highlights their weakness, your courage, their fear. As you rise, you reveal the emptiness of their excuses, the hollowness of their self-imposed limitations. In your upward motion, you strip away the lies they tell themselves, that life is meant to be endured, not conquered. They can't bear to watch you grow, for in each victory you achieve, they see the loss of their own potential. You play the hero in their tragedy, the light that illuminates the darkness they've chosen to embrace. To them, you are a threat, not for what you take from them, but for what you reveal about them. Your ascent is an unspoken rebuke. To dare is to invite the wrath of those who fear the very act of aspiration. They see you rise, see the promise of something greater, and their anger festers. It's a resentment born not out of hatred for you, but out of hatred for what they've become. You are the painful reminder that their limitations are self-imposed, that the world hasn't defeated them. They have surrendered willingly. In the face of your ambition, their cynicism feels hollow, their excuses transparent, and so they lash out, their envy masked as disdain, their fear cloaked in judgment. In your pursuit of something higher, you become a mirror, forcing them to confront their own complacency. They feed you simplicity, spoon-feed black and white, as if the mind couldn't handle anything more. They craft a world of clear-cut villains and heroes, rights and wrongs, truths and lies. They need the world to be straightforward, predictable, with no room for questions that could unearth uncomfortable realities. Yet the world itself is messy, complex, painted in shades of gray. In the gray lies the unknown, the unscripted, the space where true power and understanding emerge. But to condition minds to think in black and white is to blind them to this magic, to strip them of the depth that questions bring. Those who think only in absolutes become easy to control, with no room for nuance, no tolerance for ambiguity. They cling to the safe, the certain, the shallow. There is no room for wonder, no space for curiosity. They silence the urge to question, to probe beyond the surface, and in doing so, they become prisoners of their own minds. The unknown becomes something to fear rather than something to explore. And in this fear, in this surrender to simplicity, they lose themselves. They are reduced to hollow reflections, obedient echoes of someone else's design. The gray is where the mind awakens, where ideas come to life, where truth is never clear, always shifting, always inviting further exploration. But black and white thinking robs them of this. It creates a world devoid of depth, a prison where only what is easy to understand is permitted. They chain themselves to beliefs, to rigid morals, afraid to wander too close to the shadows, where true understanding hides. They are given rules, boundaries that keep them safe, but safety has a cost. It costs them their freedom, their individuality, their ability to think for themselves. In the gray, one learns to navigate the unknown, to make peace with contradictions, to understand that life is rarely simple. But most will never know this, conditioned to see only the surface, to ignore the undercurrents. The gray is where life's real lessons wait, where pain transforms into understanding, where suffering gives birth to insight. Those who embrace it gain wisdom that the black and white thinkers will never know. They will understand resilience, complexity, the true nature of existence. But this understanding is reserved only for those brave enough to step outside the lines. A mind conditioned to reject the gray is a mind controlled. It lacks the flexibility to adapt, to see beyond its own rigid beliefs. It clings to structure, to rules, unable to understand that life often demands the exact opposite. To grow, one must embrace uncertainty, ambiguity, the very things black and white thinking shuns. But this conditioning, this forced simplicity, keeps them in place. They live confined by their own fears, by the boundaries drawn by others. They never step out, never ask questions, and in their silence, they miss the real magic of life. For those who dare venture into the gray, there's a freedom unknown to those who choose comfort over complexity. In the gray, they learn to accept life's contradictions, to understand that truth is rarely a straight line. They are not afraid of the unknown. They welcome it. The black and white thinkers can only watch from the sidelines, bound by their own simplicity, by the walls they've built around their minds. To break free, to step into the gray, is to see the world as it truly is. Chaotic, unpredictable, but endlessly full of possibility. The unknown is where the real power lies, a place beyond the reach of those who refuse to think for themselves. In black and white, there's no growth, only stagnation, only a life spent in the shadows of someone else's design. The gray offers them a choice: to remain comfortable, safe, and ignorant, or to embrace the pain of uncertainty and grow. But for most, the pain is too great, the fear too strong. They retreat into their shallow comforts, leaving the gray to those willing to endure, to suffer, to learn. Only in the gray do we confront our own limitations, our own fears, and in doing so, we transcend them. Those who stay within the confines of black and white are spared this pain, but they are also denied this growth. They never question, never learn, never see beyond the boundaries. In this ignorance, they are blind to the beauty of life, the complexity that makes it real. They accept only what is easy, what is safe, what is fed to them. They never see beyond the edges, never touch the unknown, never know what it means to truly live. To live in the gray is to face the harsh reality of life, to confront the truths hidden beneath the surface. It is to understand that nothing is ever certain, that knowledge is always evolving, that pain is often the path to wisdom. In the gray, we find ourselves stripped of illusions, forced to grapple with our deepest fears. Only there, in that space of uncertainty, do we grow. A life without purpose is a life dictated by the whims of others. Without a hierarchy of goals, your mind is a blank canvas, waiting to be painted over by the expectations of society, of tradition, of those who feed on the directionless. Those without purpose drift through life, climbing ladders they didn't even choose, finding themselves locked in systems they never questioned. They give their minds, their time, to pursuits that mean nothing when stripped bare. And by the time that they realize it, the years have slipped away, leaving them with nothing but a hollow legacy built on someone else's dreams. To create a hierarchy of goals is to protect yourself against the numbing undertow of mindless routines and imposed ideals. A goal gives life an anchor, a compass steering through the noise, filtering out the unnecessary. In a world of constant demands, of endless distractions, the clarity of your own goals becomes a lifeline, the only shield against manipulation. Goals transform every choice, every sacrifice, into something meaningful. Without them, life becomes a scattered mess, driven by the needs of everyone else, until one day, you wake up realizing you've been living someone else's life. If you don't define what matters, someone will happily do it for you. They will place you on their chessboard, their hierarchy, to serve their desires, their ambitions. In the end, you become another piece, a pawn in someone else's game, easily replaced, easily forgotten. Those without their own path end up living as spectators in their own existence, guided by forces they barely understand, driven by goals that serve no purpose beyond survival. To live without self-defined purpose is to surrender control, to let others determine your worth, your direction. A goal isn't just a destination. It's the only counter to the aimless suffering that fills an unstructured life. Without purpose, without a personal hierarchy, pain is just pain, a reminder of meaninglessness. But when pain serves a goal, it transforms. It becomes fuel, a reminder of what you're willing to endure. With a goal, even suffering gains meaning, becomes a step forward rather than a step back. When life hits hard, those who lack purpose crumble, for there is nothing to catch them, nothing to remind them of the reason to rise again. Without a hierarchy of goals, you'll find yourself climbing ladders that lead to nowhere, to empty titles and hollow praise. The corporate ladder, the social ladder, even the ladder of family expectations. They all demand your loyalty, your effort. They make you believe there's something at the top worth striving for. But when you get there, the view is bleak, barren. Every step was another betrayal of what you could have been, had you chosen your own path, had you set your own goals. To reach the top only to find nothing is the bitterest pain of all. The only true counter to life's chaos is to have goals that are untouchable, so deeply rooted in your being that they withstand the blows, the distractions, the empty promises. Without this anchor, the storms of life will tear you apart, leave you desperate for direction, for someone else to tell you what to do. A mind without a hierarchy is an empty vessel, easily filled with trivial pursuits. And in the end, it is this emptiness that breeds the deepest regret, a hollow ache for a life spent on things that never mattered. Each goal acts as armor, each layer of purpose shielding you from the endless void of meaninglessness. The world demands your attention, seeks to pull you into its endless dramas, its hollow victories. Only a strong sense of purpose can cut through the noise, guiding you forward. Without this hierarchy, you drift, every gust of wind swaying your path, every voice louder than your own. And as years pass, this drift becomes a trap, a prison of missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. Purpose is the ultimate defiance against the trivial. It keeps you from bending to the meaningless, from succumbing to distractions that lead to nowhere. Goals sharpen your mind, focus your actions, creating a path that cuts through the monotony. Without them, you surrender to the currents, pulled wherever others want to take you. You become a mirror of others' desires, their fears, a shadow rather than a person. To live without purpose is to fade, to disappear within the patterns others impose upon you. A personal hierarchy of goals is your weapon, your shield, the only thing standing between you and the despair of a life lived without meaning. It forces you to prioritize, to filter out the trivial, to focus on what truly matters. Without it, you are vulnerable, exposed to every whim, every expectation, left scrambling for scraps of significance in a sea of irrelevance. The goals you set become the only truths worth holding on to, the only things that keep you grounded when the world tries to consume you.